Okay. I'll go live here. I'm going to pull up the stream on my
Should I do the same?
phone. Yeah, if you pull it up on your account, you could actually chat from your own account. Yep. Okay, cool. And it's only lagging by a few seconds.
I don't think I have my YouTube account.
Yeah, you do. It's your Gmail.
I'm logged into yours.
Yeah.
All right, we should have figured this out before.
Oh, that's okay. Let me see it. You can log into mine if you want to look at the chat on there. So we're just getting set up here. We'll let a couple people trickle in, see what happens. And I can see there's a couple people here. Welcome. We're just going to kind of have a casual chat today and talk about our current Heilkunst remedies. Going to talk about. I feel like talking about like the state of the world a little bit, state of society just a little bit. Maybe going on a little tiny bit of a rant. And let's see. Joe Fortin live. Should be live now. There you go. So go ahead and say hi in the chat so we can see if it shows your name. I think it should.
I have to create a channel to join the chat. I can't chat.
I get what it's saying. It wants you to, yeah, basically, it doesn't mean that you have to actually have a channel, but it'll tell you, like, you need to have a channel. It basically will give you a name, I think, on there, where right now it's just using your Gmail account. But it doesn't matter. The chat's on here if you want to use it. If you see basically us sending a message, me sending a message, it could be from either of us. So anyway, welcome everyone. Today is Friday, August 26, 2022. Just doing a little bit of a live stream. I hope the feed is okay. I think we've got the tech issues pretty much sorted out. I'm about to buy another router, so after we get that, it should be like really good. But anyway, we're going to be discussing more of the human design topic, essentially, probably in the next week or so. We might actually come back on and do another live, like a impromptu live. Cindy's prepared a few more slides on some of the things I think that we didn't get to in the last presentation. I know, like, you're going to talk about like the arrows and a couple of other things.
Yeah,
right?
I'm just going to go over the basics of each of the 4 arrows, known as the 4 transformations. This can tell you a little bit more about your digestion type, the environment that's best for you, and how you're designed to operate, or how you're designed to interact with your environment best, as well as your unique perception and unique mechanics of awareness. So that's a little bit of what the arrows can tell you about, but beyond that, then there's deeper layers such as color and tone that get extremely specific. So yeah, we'll discuss that later.
Yeah, so we're gonna, like I said, do live where we go into those details, and we'll also be releasing videos where we kind of break a few things down, and that way we can have some short, succinct videos that apply to like the different parts of a body graph, for example. But we're not doing that today. We're just pretty much going to pop on here. I don't think we're going to be on here super long today. It looks like my computer is starting to glitch out a little bit, but I think the feed will be fine. I think it's just actually the screen on my end.
Anyways.
But yeah, so we wanted to talk a little bit about our Heilkunst remedies. And Sydney, you've been doing a few. We're on what, like the second batch this go around?
Yeah.
Is that right? And I've been making video logs on here, I think, since I started, and I haven't done one in a while, but I am going to talk about the most current remedy that I'm taking, and Sydney's going to talk about the one that she's on. I'm actually on a miasm right now, which is actually like one of the toughest things to process. It's generally you don't even do miasms until you're at the end of the timeline.
Aren't they all miasms?
No.
Oh.
No. The timeline packets typically are going to be for disease energy, and like basically like the typical I'm not getting the name right, but basically the way that Laura explained it to me is like the miasms are like the root and the trunk of the trees. If you were to envision yourself as a tree, the miasms are like energetic blocks that are preventing like the life force from reaching the branches, for example. And then the timeline events that create the disease energy are like blocks to the leaves of the tree, essentially. So what you have to do is you have to go and you have to deal with all of the timeline events first, and then you go down to like the chronic miasms, which are a deeper layer of energy. In my particular case, though, because I have some of the miasms so strongly and they're affecting me so much, she's deciding to do some of the miasm work ahead of time, and kind of go in the middle of the process and do the miasms. They really, really are very hard to go through. But I'm going to talk about what that is. I want to let you share on.
Well, so is lachesis a miasm?
No.
So what are the miasms then?
I think there's 8. All the miasms, from what I understand, stem from like one like originating miasm, which is Psora, Psora. And you can read about this. I'm going to type it in the chat right now. Heilkunst miasms. If anybody wants to look it up. What's up, greatest? And so basically there's 8, from what I understand, that they've like discovered since Samuel Hahnemann started identifying them. They all originate from one called Psora, and basically all of the miasms, it's like a genetically inherited predisposition towards a certain disease state. So it's like it has a very strong like emotional. They all have a very strong emotional component, a very distinct state of mind, and they can give rise to a multitude of different symptoms, but it will fall within like a single category. So the originator, right?
The
but then
foundation, and then everything else branches off.
So miasms are like almost like variation of Psora. So, like for example, you've got, I don't know if I can even name all 8. You've got syphilis, Lyme, which is the one I'm doing now, Metarinum, which I think is also called psychosis. Cancer is a miasm. It can literally, having this miasm strongly can lead to developing cancer. Malaria is a miasm. I think tuberculosis might be one.
Do you want me to look it up on my phone?
Yeah, you can look it up. But there's 8 chronic miasms, and essentially what we've come to understand, or at least what Heilkunstler have come to understand, is that we all have some of them to varying degrees. Syphilis, I think, is actually the most prevalent and the strongest energy that you see in most people. And let me explain like how this works. Yeah, so Psora, malaria, tuberculosis, ringworm, psychosis or Metarinum, cancer, syphilis, and Lyme. Yeah, so
you got most of them. I think you got all of them actually, except ringworm.
Yeah, I missed ringworm. What was I saying before though?
You said you were going to explain how.
Oh, so basically, like I've explained this on the channel about syphilis specifically, but having the syphilis miasm affecting you does not mean that you have syphilis. that being said, having the syphilis miasm strongly be something that magnetizes the disease state of syphilis into your life. So like if you have the syphilis miasm really strongly, it's going to cause you to take actions and to attract people that might cause you to contract syphilis, like the actual disease, right? But regardless of whether or not you ever contract the actual disease of syphilis, what's happening is that someone in your genetic line, someone in your ancestral lineage, at some point will have gotten syphilis, right? And what it does is it creates an energetic impingement on the life force, and it creates an epigenetic overlay. It changes the genetic expression of the entire line, and it will carry down through the ancestry until someone does some type of clearing work to heal that miasm, which would be very strongly related with your state of mind, and will lead to different chronic ailments. And so what we're doing when we take the packet is we're addressing this, and we're releasing the energy. Now, I'm actually going to address Lyme specifically, because that is the one that I'm taking.
And then I'm going to talk a little bit about lachesis.
Yeah. Why don't we talk about lachesis first? Because I'm going to look up these two articles on Lyme.
Okay. Should I just go ahead?
Well, you go ahead with your experience. Lachesis is a
shame, self-worth.
Yeah. So lachesis is a disease state, and it is associated with the emotions of shame, guilt, self-worth, that type of thing. But if you go like on a homeopathy website and you look up lachesis, there will be a whole list of symptoms, and potentially different types of ailments that could possibly have a wide range that would be associated with it.
So if lachesis is not a miasm, what is it considered? Just a disease energy?
Yeah. There might be another term for it that I'm missing. But essentially that's what I've come to know it as. Like lachesis is given as a remedy, so it's most often referred to as a, but the remedy matches an energetic waveform in the being that causes a disease state to occur in the body, right? So in homeopathy they use like what is known as the law of similars. Hi, Sentinel. And essentially what it is that like if you have a certain disease state energy in the being, they're actually going to give you a dose of that disease in like an artificial way, to get the being to purge that energy out. And I actually have a video explaining like my kind of conceptual understanding of how this works. I want to say it's like Heilkunst in vibration, or Heilkunst in electrical engineering terms, or something like that. I've got a diagram with waveforms on it, and I'm kind of explaining like how I understand this. And yeah, so anyway, this is an energy that I definitely had, and still have pretty strongly, and releasing these can be pretty difficult.
Yeah, not fun.
Depending on where you're at.
I've been releasing for the past probably 2.5 weeks now, and on Monday I did a TikTok live class for the first time in about a week or so, maybe actually 2 weeks, due to me processing this heavy energy. And I had a huge release on on camera, which was big for me, because normally if I'm like about to cry on camera, I just want to turn it off, go handle what I need to, and then come back when I'm done. But I realized in the moment, I was like, I feel like this is a test on this. So I allowed myself to be vulnerable. I felt a huge release and way lighter afterwards. I was very grateful for the people in the comments who were supportive. That was extremely helpful. But the next day I woke up with a cold, and that cold then progressed for a couple days, and it was really bad. I haven't been able to breathe through my nose very much, so if I sound a little congested still, I am. I'm still in the process of releasing.
Did you take a Natrium muriaticum remedy? Or
I have all the remedies in my pocket. Shall we go through them?
Yeah, well, I know that you have one on now, but I'm
I've
wondering
got
if
many
you
on.
took one before.
Oh,
that.
hold on.
We put these on essentially as to treat the acute symptoms that you were having, but I'm wondering if you'd taken a Natrium muriaticum.
You did give me a
before.
Nat M200C, but I had not taken one
Right.
individually. That was after I had the cold. You gave me.
Right. You were supposed
to. Laura gave you, then you gave me.
You're supposed to take another one, right?
Ignatium, that one. That one's for congestion. Let's talk about that one. And
Ignatia is for acute grief, not congestion.
Well, it says congestion on there, so sorry.
She gave it with a congestion remedy, but Ignatia is for acute grief. The thing about grief is that, and this actually ties in with something that happened recently in my family. Grief is associated with the lungs, right? If you look into like Chinese medicine, for example,
lung meridian,
they note this. And someone who's experiencing grief will also resonate with Natrium muriaticum, which is actually the energy of salt, I believe.
Which means what?
It's just a waveform. It's the waveform of salt is similar to that energy in the being that is associated with grief for whatever reason. I can't explain exactly how it works.
I was about to ask,
but that's just the way it works.
Salt.
Let me back up and explain how they figure out what these remedies do and what they are. In homeopathy, they do what's known as a proving. They'll take a healthy person and they will do a titration on some kind of compound or an organism or a pathogen. And what they do is take salt, for example, but you could use any compound in. You could use tissue from an animal, right? They will take, in this case, salt, put it into water. Then they will dilute it by a factor of 10, right? And so it'll be 10 to 1 distilled water to, 10 units of distilled water to 1 unit of the solution, right? And then they'll keep doing that 10 to 1, 10 to 1, 10 to 1 until it gets to the point where there's actually no salt. There's none of the original compound left in solution. But the idea, in alignment with like Dr. Emoto's experiments, for example, is that the water structure takes on the energetic imprint of whatever compound you've put in it. So what this does is that it informs the being, right, which is made of water and vibration and energy, right? That, basically we're going to purge this. Now, what the mechanism of action is there, I'm not 100% sure. But essentially, having all of that information, that prerequisite, what it does in approving is that they'll take something like salt and they'll give it to a healthy person. Actually, they'll give it to several healthy people. And they will basically see what type of symptoms occur in the healthy people. Because what will happen is if a healthy person with, like a healthy waveform takes that, it will actually induce for a short period of time the symptoms associated with that energy, right? And so when they say using the law of similars, someone who's in that energy, if given that dose, will then purge that energy and move into a state of health as a result of purging the energy, right? So in approving, again, they give the energetic medication, the remedy to a healthy person and see what type of symptoms it induces. They write everything down. This will include a particular state of mind. It will include certain physical symptoms. I mean, you could take a remedy and then break out in hives, or, you could get itchy, or you could get sick, or so on and so forth, right? And that's how they figure out how to use these things. Then what they'll do later on is, when someone shows up in their office with that exact set of symptoms, they'll say, here, try this remedy, and they give it to them, and it will then clear those symptoms. So it's very interesting in terms of how it works. Like I said, I'm going to be going to school for this, so at some point I'll be able to explain this a lot better and give probably, I mean, my goal is to figure out like how it works, like exactly what's going on. Right now, I can explain the basics and explain, what it's done for me and what our experience is with it, and that's sort of what we're here to do now. But yeah, so trying to back up so that I can remember the point that I was trying to make with all of those different prerequisite concepts. You had asked me what those different things were. Trying to just figure out how to move forward. Where are we going with this?
Well, I still wanted to talk about leukhesis.
Okay, we can talk about leukhesis.
I wanted to talk about my experience with shame and self-worth and how that plays into perfectionism and anxiety and self-doubt and all that, because I got a pretty good understanding of that this past week I would like to share.
Yeah. Let me make one point about some of your symptoms before we move forward, just to make it clear. The head cold thing, grief is associated with the lungs, right? I've taken natrium eroticum remedies many times, and one of the things that I'll get pressure in my head before I'll end up crying. And when I cry, that pressure in this part of my body will be relieved, right? And so natrium eroticum, when taken, can help you release grief and sadness. You will literally cry. You can go through like 2-3 weeks of like intense crying spells and stuff like that. You'll have pressure up in this area of your body, and sometimes that can manifest as an actual cold or like a head cold, right? And so that what you experience is more in alignment with the energy of natrium eroticum than it is leukhesis. But I think that they're linked in your case.
Yeah, well, when it comes to negative emotional patterns, it's very rarely just one emotion. A lot of times it'll be like a concoction of a few. And what I mean by that is, for example, shame. Well, what is shame? I was doing some deeper research into this, and I love this definition I found, and it defined shame as fear of disconnection. So, for example, if I present XYZ or this part of myself to the tribe, then it might result in me not being worthy of connection, which is obviously not true. But I've also really been thinking about how when we're age range from 0 to 7, we are not able to think logically. We are thinking purely from an emotional standpoint. So that's when all those emotional patterns get written and instilled within the subconscious. So it's looking back on your traumas, looking back on these patterns, knowing that it's time to add some logic and shift the pattern rather than remain in the emotional place. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, basically what you're saying is that the effects of past trauma lie to you. Like, it's making you project a picture onto reality that's not accurate. You feel ashamed, and you don't want people to see that, like, that you're not like an emotional rock, right? Which is what, for some reason, society's programmed us all to think that we need to be. And like, there's literally, like, it actually goes down to like this fear of death. Like, there's actually a fear of death that comes like when you think people are gonna like find you out and like find out that like you have, sadness, or like you have, some kind of flaw, right? And it's like, just through that and like being vulnerable, being open on camera, and like having people be supportive really can be helpful to like understand that, like, no, actually, like, a lot of people feel this way, and you're not alone, and like that actually helps you connect with your audience.
Exposing your shame is actually part of the transmutation process. And back to the idea of how emotions are often interconnected and can kind of chain reaction trigger another one. So shame, the fear of disconnection. So fear and shame are kind of hand in hand, depending on what context or situation you're referring to. But say, for example, you have a negative pattern with shame that manifested something unwanted happening. You could then react to emotions. Hold on. Basically, what I'm trying to get at is, say you were shamed in your childhood, that could have been something to feel grief over. So because you felt shame, you then feel grief too. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, the remedies are given like that.
Yeah.
Sometimes they'll get like,
I'm still a little.
when you do a timeline packet, very often you'll actually be given an NSOL remedy, which I've made several video logs about. NSOL is 4 emotional remedies combined. It's a very common remedy to be given in the Heilkunst timeline, and it's Natrum muriaticum, Staphysagria, opium, and lachesis. Now, the 2 that we haven't mentioned today is opium and Staphysagria. Staphysagria is actually a flower, but it resonates with the energy emotionally of anger and victimization. Opium is, as we know, the poppy plant. It's a derivative of the poppy plant, and it actually resonates strongly with the disease state associated with fear, strong fear, right? Now, when you take an opium remedy, you're not actually being given opium. You're being given an energetic remedy that is basically vibrating with the energy of opium, right? So it would be as if like you could write the word opium on a beaker of water, and it will inform the water structure to align with the energetic imprint of that substance, right? Homeopaths use the actual substance. So they actually do what I said earlier, and they'll take like opium, they'll put it in water, they'll dilute it a bunch of times until there's no actual opium left in the water, but it has the energetic imprint of it, and they'll actually sell homeopathic remedies at the store. Heilkunst is based on Hahnemann's later work. We don't do any of that. We literally write the remedy on a piece of paper and either put it in our pocket or write that on a water dropper and take that. There's no actual substance being consumed. Now, the interesting thing is that this is something that is not always shared with new patients, because a lot of new patients, if they were told this, would just totally reject it and not even bother to try it. So it is sometimes like it's not that they would lie, but it's kind of omitted a little bit in the beginning, and then people see it work, and they start to ask questions about like, how does this actually work, and then they get it explained. Just wanted to back up for a second, say hi to ZA, hello, and greatest ever. Are you referring to what I think you're referring to?
Probably.
Yeah. We could definitely talk about that sometime. I'm not ready though. So yeah, with Heilkunst, it's like I said, a little bit more advanced. And people have a hard time with it. People have a hard time like the idea that could actually do anything, right? Probably not the people that would watch my channel, which is why I'm just explaining it. I've explained it before, I think, on my channel. But yeah, so in response to what you were saying a minute ago, like NSOL remedies are often given. Sometimes an event will only have 2 of the emotional remedies. So you might have an event in your timeline that you're going to address that, for example, has anger and sadness, but does not include any fear or self-worth issues, lachesis type energy, right? And so you might take a remedy for Staphysagria and Natrum muriaticum together, right? And I think that essentially what we've done, right? So you took the lachesis energy, it unearthed some sadness that was there. So then when, we saw that there was Natrum muriaticum energy there, we gave you a remedy for that as well, right? And so sometimes that's how it's done. It has to be like you might forget that, like, let's say at a point in your timeline that you felt sad as well as angry. Well, if you're only given the remedy for anger, and then it unearths the sadness while you're releasing the anger, then it can be appropriate to also address the sadness. It can be appropriate to add another remedy to the timeline packet or to the event. So that's essentially what we've done.
Yeah, I also wanted to tie in a little bit of this.
Go ahead. Are you feeling it right now?
Honestly, no. I feel, because the fact I'm still congested and a little bit foggy brained, I'm not quite as sorry, I was reading the comment.
Petting the cat.
That's funny.
So we're talking about imposter syndrome.
And how that usually goes hand in hand with self-doubt, anxiety, the fear of failure, and painful perfectionism, which I have suffered from all of those. But yeah, it basically comes back around to releasing illusions that were programmed during childhood, programs before you had your logical mind on tune. I can't think of the word. But I was also tying it into human design, in that our Ajna center, which is the second from the top, the center that's responsible for our perception, the way we see things, the way we frame things, and when that's open, you have the ability to perceive nearly any perception, nearly any and every perspective. And the not self theme with that open Ajna center is pretending to be certain, or feeling the need that you have to be certain on what you're talking about, because people with an open ajna, because they can see all the angles, there can be truth in many different angles. So picking and choosing one to stick with can be tough. So I found that interesting, how feeling certain in my communication kind of ties in with my confidence in communication. Of course, I don't know, I'll leave it there, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah, I think you kind of went far off on a limb there, on a tangent. But talking about, I've felt this as well, and I felt this, I think, pretty strongly when I first started doing coaching work a couple of years ago. I really took my time before putting up a website, doing anything like that. But I realized that I still had a lot to learn, and that I didn't know everything. But when I actually started to put myself out there to be a coach, I got really scared. I wasn't willing to promote myself. I very often had self-doubt. I very often thought, that I didn't have what it took. And there's quite a few. We've been watching some TED Talks about imposter syndrome, and it's kind of funny because what we kind of found out was that a lot of people feel this way. Like, even people that are like looked at as like highly successful people, like who are running like Fortune 500 companies, and like people that are, have 8,000 employees working under them and things like that, like actually have these feelings. Like, it's actually pretty common for people to feel this way. The other thing is that, whenever you're doing sort of like a philosophical thought on it, whenever you're doing something new, I mean, you're going to be, you're going to be somewhat of a beginner at whatever it is you're doing. And I think that as a society, somehow we've made it like not okay for that to be the case. I think that there's a lot of pressure on people to be perfect. I think that, to tie into the video title, social media has really caused some huge problems with this, because everybody's like always like presenting their highlight reel. They're always, not everybody, but a lot of people, it's like they are going out of their way to appear to be perfect in ways that are not really humanly possible. And I think that creates a lot of pressure. I think it also, from the point of view of, the casual observer who doesn't see behind the scenes, it makes people feel like they're not good enough because they can't stack up to this false image that people are presenting, right? And so I think that this has actually exacerbated things like imposter syndrome quite a lot in recent years. And yeah, but yeah, it's something that like everybody has to push through. I think that if you're doing something new and you don't feel this way at all, like that might indicate like some serious like ego issues, narcissism, arrogance, that type of thing. Because I think it's normal to feel some level of doubt when you're attempting to do something you haven't done before.
Yeah, and that's the idea, is learning to develop a relationship with that feeling and a relationship with making mistakes in general, to take the pressure off. And again, align your perception with truth, align your perception with reality, and not fall into illusions, which then generate negative emotions and other stuff.
Yeah. Sentinel says, I see imposter syndrome as yet another energetic distortion from ancestral trauma, not all that different from fear of abandonment, obsession, addiction, and so on. Yeah.
Yeah, the idea of proving your worth and feeling undeserving or stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to find a way to tie this into some of the thoughts that I was having earlier. We really just have a lot of totally unrealistic expectations of ourselves and of other people, and it creates these feedback loops where it's almost like all of us on some level, it's like with Tico, right? It's like this mental virus. It's like a virus that is totally like irrational, illogical, can't see itself, is always projecting out, is really hard to pin down, and is especially important to pin down within oneself, right? So we're constantly trying to keep up with the Joneses and meet these standards that are really not possible, and when we don't meet them, we beat ourselves up. So it's basically this impossible feedback loop, the Ouroboros, right? And like when I look at like most of the problems that we have as a society, that's what it looks like. It looks like a feedback loop. It looks like a double bind. It looks like a no-win scenario. It looks like, well, this is interesting. This dynamic has been set up where no matter which option you choose, you somehow lose. Yeah, it's just like, it's crazy. I kind of just want to talk about the state of the world a little bit. I mean, what I'm seeing out there is absolutely insane. I feel like humanity is like collectively losing its mind. The phrase that I keep using is that people are becoming bad caricatures of themselves. Like they're just becoming like exaggerated, distorted versions of themselves, and whatever trajectory they've found themselves going down in terms of like whatever's going to drag them into the darkest, crappiest disease energy, like satanic energy of fear. It seems to be like throwing them into this feedback loop and sucking them further and further and further into whatever. Yeah, and yeah, well, I mean, basically, if you want to look at it on a spiritual, energetic level, like yes, there are like templates are being distorted, and what's happening is the Schumann's kicking up, and it's literally bringing energy through the chakras, and when it hits a block or a distortion, it has to go somewhere, and what it's doing is it's jutting out, and it's like creating a timeline. It's like creating all of these actions and things that are not in alignment with where the person should be, right? I've explained this in my other videos, but what happens is when they fail to recognize that they're on that path, they get deeper and deeper and deeper, and further and further and further away from their true selves and from source. And it's I could have conceptualized that maybe a little bit better, but I just see like what's happening right now is like utter chaos. It's like a clown world out there. It's like up is down, left is right, good is bad, right is wrong. And like anybody who actually like, it seems to me like has like a solid understanding of like who they are, like is actually like understands like morality and ethics, like actually understands these things. It seems like those people are the ones being like pointed at and being called wrong, being called crazy, being, you know, it's just like go down the list. It's absolutely nuts. Like everything's backwards and upside down.
Everyone's stuck in distortions.
It's really tough. I think that doing this type of work is becoming increasingly difficult, you know, because it's almost like in order to really fully do this type of work, you'd have to almost like totally withdraw from society. The problem is that the way society is set up is that you have to go further into it to get out of it. In other words, you have to make more money. You have to be more of like a slave to the matrix. Like you have to go do more of the things and fit into more of the groups and social categories and yada 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 in order to possess the wealth, in order to like get out of it in a way that's actually productive, unless you're just going to go like be, you know, live in a tent. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't know about you guys, but I don't think I want to do that.
Maybe we should still go camping though.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that I'm not going to like learn how to do all these things and like try to learn how to live off the land and like try to learn
Just
how
in
to be
case.
self-sustaining. But, you know, I would like to own a piece of property, have a nice home, have, you know, wind turbines and
We have a
solar
visitor.
panels.
Little chipmunk just came and said hi. I wonder what that means. Sorry. Super off topic.
Squirrel.
My bad.
Yeah,
Sorry.
but it's just, it's really, it's becoming really, really tough. You know, the other thing that I noticed is that, and you know, I've been talking about this for years, people really like crabs in a bucket. Like you start to try to climb out of the position within the social hierarchy that you have with them, and they will unconsciously undermine you at every turn. It can be something as simple as like changing your diet. You try to change your diet in a way that is not the same as the people around you, and they will constantly hurl insults at you, make fun of you, fuck with you. You know what I mean? They will offer you stuff constantly. Like, and I'm not pointing at anybody right now in like my own environment, so I hope that nobody's like taking this personally, but it's crazy, and it's like an all-out assault, and it's like that with like everything you try to do. You know, and that's just like one little example, but it's like that with everything you try to do. I'm noticing, because I'm back in the environment that I was in when I was younger. This is actually ties into talking about the Heilkunst remedies. Actually, why don't I talk about that for a minute? I just took a remedy. I just took a Lyme miasm remedy, which I actually would like to read a little bit about. If you could pull that up real quick, do you mind?
I just looked up the chipmunk spiritual meaning.
Okay. Well, I want to.
Okay,
I don't want to lose my thought.
Okay, I'll save it for later. Lyme, has some.
Yeah. So, the remedy that I took prior to taking the Lyme miasm remedy was actually a remedy for a point in my timeline about 8 years ago, where I had there was 2 times in my life, around 8 to 10 years ago, that I went to the methadone clinic to try to get off of opiates. Worst thing ever, by the way. Worst thing they could possibly give people with opiate addiction. Like, it is an awful toxic compound. Like, it is a terrible thing, methadone. But anyway, they gave it to me, and so I'm at the point in my timeline now with the Heilkunst remedies where I'm addressing them. And what we're attempting to do is to rid the being of the energetic impingement caused by a year of methadone use. And like I said, this was totally illegal. I was going to a doctor. I was going to a methadone clinic. Like, this was totally sanctioned by Western medicine, so to speak. And I have never been the same since. Like, that shit is awful. Like, I like literally stopped being able to experience joy after being on methadone. Like, it totally changed my brain chemistry. I mean, not only, not, I couldn't get actually high anymore, but the reason was because like it was flooding my brain with like so much garbage that it changed something in the way that my brain worked. And I wasn't able to like get high, but I also wasn't able to like experience like positive emotions anymore, like experience like joy.
Yeah, when our body numbs emotions, it can't do it selectively, so it'll numb all the emotions, the good ones and the bad ones.
Yeah. And that's what I was doing with drugs, was trying to numb the emotion. Yeah, it numbed both. So anyway, I'm taking a remedy now to purge that. And the interesting thing was a lot of interesting things about this. When I look at my timeline and I look at the remedies that I've taken, the remedies are in reverse chronological order from when you go in, right? And first do your first appointment. And I've noticed that, especially in the last like year or so, it's like I've been living my life backwards. I'm dealing with the exact same energetic signatures, situations, so on and so forth, in reverse chronological order. And it's coinciding with the remedies like perfectly. Now, you could get into an argument about causation. Is this causation or correlation? Are these things happening just in lockstep, in sync, or is one causing the other?
Or both.
Well, the answer is there's no answer. There isn't an answer. It's both. It is both.
Yes.
Is it fate or free will? Yeah, it's both, right? But when I look at, there's a bunch of different things that are really interesting. The thing that tipped me off to this was I went into the Hannaford's. I went into the grocery store and I bought coffee ice cream with caramel sauce, and I thought about it, and I was like, the last time I did that was like 8 years ago. This is really weird. I took my 3 methadone packets, the energetic packets, and didn't take methadone. I took 3 packets that basically said methadone on them, and then like the next day I went and bought this ice cream, and I was like, that's really weird. Why did I have this impulse to buy this coffee ice cream?
But it wasn't until after we got home that he made that connection. In the store, he just went for dessert.
Right. And so then I started thinking about it a little more, and I was like, I was also, a little. I'm a little bit overweight right now. I was a little bit overweight at the time. Actually, I was a lot overweight when I was taking methadone, and at that time, I'd gotten fired from my father's garage working on cars, which is where I'm working right now, part-time. There was like a whole list of like things that I'm like, this is really weird. It's like I'm living my life backwards, like it's in parallel. And it's almost like I'm getting like a chance energetically to like revisit all of that and like do it differently and like respond to it differently. So many things are exactly the same in terms of the situation, in terms of the way I feel, in terms of what's going on. And there was one of the things I was going to mention that, well, I'm working with, that's where I was going to go. That's where I was headed with this. I brought it full circle. So I'm working with, I think I mentioned this. I was working with in high school. I'm working with my 2 buddies that like, are like, I've known them since I was like a kid. And it's so funny how like nothing has changed. Like, it's like we're all a little bit older, a little bit more mature. Things are a little easier for sure. But like the dynamics are like almost identical to where they were. And that was a big reason why I moved away, was because when I was around people that knew me, like while I was like a shit show, their idea of me and their concept of me and the way they spoke to me and the way that they labeled me and the way that they treated me, the whole 9 yards, would be in alignment with like me being a shit show. And what I realized was that energetic mental pressure was actually part of the reason I was staying stuck. And I'm not blaming them, right? They were just, that was their concept of me, right? And for them to change that would require a huge dramatic difference, but I needed to go away to make that difference.
Our subconscious beliefs and perspective affect them more than we think.
Yeah. That's one of the things that David Hawkins' book, Letting Go, talks about, like power versus force and all that stuff, which is one of the things that we teach. It's one of the things I teach people about the twin flame dynamic, right? Is that your like mental concept, especially of your twin flame is going to mirror it like the most strongly to you. Like your mental concept of them, your emotions towards them, your like pre-programmed relationship traumas, all of that will literally cause them
to react
and take the opposite corresponding energy.
Yep, we've experienced that one.
Yeah, like perfectly, like absolutely perfectly. And it was actually uncanny and amazing how the beginning of our relationship reflected my exact issues. Like exactly like what I had going on in my subconscious, like in my unconscious psyche, was what projected out and like what manifested. And the funny thing was that what happened was totally out of alignment with her in terms of who she'd ever been before. She'd never acted in that way before.
Never.
And it played out anyway, because that was what was in our like epigenetic structure. That was what was in our disease energy state and our karmic patterns and our mental constructs and all that. And it manifested. And
I'll never forget the day you brought it up and we were talking about it on the beach and you were like, I'm a little worried about this happening. And my immediate response was, that's not me. I would never, or I don't, or that's not going to happen. And then it happened. Yep. So we had to work through that.
Yeah. I literally sat her down and told her exactly what I didn't want to happen. And like,
I was like, I'm not even worried about that happening.
And the funny thing was, I wasn't either.
Maybe we should not have ever talked about it.
Maybe. But yeah. Let me see. Greatest Ever says, I understand. If someone treats me like I'm stupid, I usually act stupid.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I'm in a situation right now where for quite a long time, some people have been, treating me like, I'm some kind of like scary dude, bad person, angry person. And like, I've been nothing but kind to them and like tried my best, my hardest. And like, it's like eventually if you keep pushing me and like you keep treating me like crap and you keep like, being rude and like, trapping me in these fucked up situations, like, yeah, eventually I'm going to be that thing that you've been projecting onto me. Like, eventually, yeah, I'm going to snap on you and fucking, scream at you. Yep, it will happen. And it doesn't make you right. You know what I mean? Like, you're creating that. It's like people don't understand how much effect, like, their judgment and, the energetic pressure that they put on people, what an effect it actually has.
Or something?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm going to be making a conscious effort to talk about the things I'm ashamed of the most. And one of the things happens to fit into this conversation fairly nicely. I had an eating disorder for about 5 years, and it's something that I'm still working on feeling comfortable talking about because I'm not proud of it, but it was a struggle. And similar to the idea of the few times I told someone that I was struggling with it, then the symptoms would act up worse when I was around that person because I could literally feel their judgment. And most of the time it was said, or it was like a passive aggressive comment, or if it was something like just not as direct or indirect, but it affected me, and then that would produce of shame and then guilt and all the things we just talked about, and then feeling the grief and disconnected and all that kind of stuff. But basically I just wanted to throw that in about how I really can relate to when you're trying to change something and someone holds you in this box of you have this label. It's really hard to disconnect to that label when someone hasn't disconnected you from that label, if that makes sense.
So. Yeah, I mean, that I went through that with addiction. I would have periods of time, and I went through this over and over and over again years ago, right about the time that we're talking about, like 8 or 9 years ago. And like, let me just be clear. I mean, I think most people probably know this, but you don't really know unless you've been through it. Getting off of something like heroin is absolutely hell. It is a hell I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. It is unbelievably excruciating, and it's also very excruciating not being able to control yourself when you really want to.
Yeah.
And I know that that's a similar thing. It's like you want to control yourself,
similarities.
but then on top of it, you've got people who don't understand that you're weak, telling you that you're making a choice,
or just fix it, just do it, do it better. It's like,
just fix it.
That's the goal.
Yeah,
that's
thank you,
clear.
Fucking Sherlock. I couldn't have thought of that on my own. Just stop doing that. Just stop drinking. Just stop doing heroin. Just stop. All you have to do is just put your mind to it. It's like,
or guilt you if they see you or catch you or whatever it might be, or if they know, then they'll try to guilt you, and then that actually just compounds it and makes the issue worse, because there's already plenty of guilt around it to begin with, and so when you throw more on it, it's just heavier.
And my favorite one was when I would actually be sober and then I would be accused of using. That one, that would make me use. That would make me fucking lose my mind and use, because I would be like literally like white knuckling it, like trying so hard to stay sober, and then someone would come in and accuse me of being fucked up anyway, and I would be like, really? Well, fuck you. You know what? If you're going to accuse me of it, I don't want to deal with these emotions. I don't want to feel this pain. I don't want to fucking do this. And if I'm not going to get any credit for doing it, well, fuck it. I'm not going to. And then I would go use. It was really tough. And like, people that don't understand these things really often make it worse. Most of the time they make it worse. And they have no idea that they're making it worse. And unfortunately, I'm sure you experienced the same thing that I did. They won't finger to learn anything about where they're making an error in that way. Like, they will not look at themselves whatsoever. They make you the problem. You're the problem. We're all perfect. You're the one who can't stop doing X, Y, and Z. And it had nothing to do with us. It happened in a vacuum.
And when you try to explain and they still don't understand, there's just this discomfort you can feel in them, like not knowing what to do, but then you also don't know what to do, and so then the tension produces more emotions and more.
I was not able to get sober in the environment that I got sick in, period. And this is a big reason why. I had to get away from that energetic signature, and when I did, it worked. And like, you're experiencing the same thing, right?
And to tie in the open centers in human design, the more open centers you have, the more you're going to feel environmental energy, the more that people's subconscious perspectives of you are going to affect you.
Can we talk about our dynamic and how that has helped you to move through that? Because I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I think that the way that I've handled all of this with you was through it.
Yes, but I'm not exactly sure what you're alluding to.
I'm alluding to, like, for example, the laptop day, or the
day. We can talk about the laptop day. I'll never forget the laptop day.
Or the day that, like, you had, shared with me that, like, you had some thoughts and things like that, right? And the way that I responded to that versus the response that you would normally get from, like, literally every other human in your life.
So maybe we start with the laptop day, and then we'll share the correlative experience from there. What does it say?
Something unrelated, so I'll read it after.
Okay. So basically, one day was it a year ago? Has it been a year?
Yeah.
Yeah, so about a year ago, we went to Grassroots to work on business stuff, research stuff, the stuff we like doing. And we had our laptops there. And the plan was to go to the park afterwards. So once we finished up what we were doing, packed up, went to the park. Now, this park was like 35 minutes away. So we get there, and we had actually planned to record a video on my laptop or something like that. And so we get there, we're getting out of the car at the park 35 minutes away from the place we had just done a lot of work at. And I open my backpack and my laptop is not there. My heart, my gut literally dropped. I felt instantly, that's the word, anxious and afraid of how he was going to react, because we had just driven 35 minutes and then I had forgotten something way back there, or hoped for the best that it was still there, and it was. But basically I told him, and he looks at me and he says, okay, we'll go back. And I was like, just looking at him in confusion, because I was expecting this big reaction, this big blow up, this big like, oh my gosh, you can't remember anything, or oh, how could you do something like that, or whatever.
You're expecting to be berated and
yes.
belittled, and yes.
But you responded with acceptance of the situation and compassion, and was like, it's not a big deal. Yeah.
And that's the thing that I think is important, right? Is that when someone has a bad habit or something like that, right?
Or they just make a mistake.
You are in judgment of that, and you are like internally feeling resentment towards that person about that. It locks it into place in the reality field. Like, it perpetuates it. It's like what you resist persists. Mm-hmm. The thing that you could do that would help that person the most would be to do the Ho'oponopono prayer, right? So if someone's like doing something like that's chronically annoying you, and it's a little thing, right? Literally, like, do the Ho'oponopono prayer. Like, feel the energy in your body and go like, okay, I have this annoying feeling, right? It's there. It's in the left part of my belly. And I'm going to breathe. I'm going to pull that energy up into my heart center, and I'm going to say, I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you, thank you, over and over and over again. Pull up that energy in through the transmutation heart center and transform it. And you will see that if you're able to truly transmute that emotional state, if you're able to truly within yourself transform that, the behavior will change immediately, especially if it's your twin flame. They will reflect that to you immediately. And I did this. I watched it. This is what I teach, right? And it's easier said than done. And certain things it's easier to do than with other things. Some patterns are more deeply set within you. Some patterns like are linked to things like miasms. And so it's not something you're going to be immediately able to clear with like thinking. But like, that's how you start that process. Like, that's how you start that transformation. And being in resistance to someone and screaming at them for being, something that they probably can't help, it totally makes it worse. It exacerbates it, and it feeds the negative energy. Mm-hmm. That type of stuff is like the stuff that gets installed in your subconscious to make all of us have all these stupid fights and resentments so that we could feed loosh to the negative entities. Like, that's what that shit is. You know what I mean? And yeah, it's distortions. I'm going to read.
But back to.
Actually, can you, unless you have something to share, go ahead and share. Can you read that real quick? I need to go over here for a second.
Okay.
Just read Sentinel's comment. I'll be right back.
Where are you going? Sorry. Okay, go. I think he's going to the bathroom. Okay, anyway. All right. I can hardly read the screen, so let me pull it up on my phone. The view I have right now, the screen is glitching, which makes the words really hard to read. We can barely see the picture right now. But let me finish what I was going to say or add. I don't remember all of it anymore, but basically just the idea of the continual practice of aligning your perception, aligning your mindset with truth, zooming out to that bird's eye perspective, the big picture, the spiritual perspective, really, because at the end of the day, we are all forms of source consciousness. So being able to see the reflection of the person who's annoying you, seeing yourself in them and figuring out how to balance that. So just remembering that we are all, I can't read it. What?
Oh, okay.
We're all connected, and anyone triggering you is showing you something that you need to release. So, and again, easier said than done. It takes practice, repetition, time and time again of pulling your mind out of the chaos and into the higher view. I was going to pull it up on here. I can't read that.
I can read it. So, Sentinel asks, Joe, I'm roughly your age, and my twin flame is much younger, but an adult. I find myself dealing with issues and addictions normal for people her age, which I thought was a finished chapter. In regards to energetically picking up on their habits and emotions via the mirroring, I didn't realize what was happening at first. So yeah. Man, when you like, totally, definitely a thing in the twin dynamic for sure. It would also be, a thing in a dynamic, in any relationship, where it's like you start dating somebody, and when I'm gonna bring this to the spiritual woo-woo plane, I'm gonna bring it back down to the regular material plane, but like on an energetic level, if you start engaging, especially sexually with someone, but even just like, romantically, doesn't have to be sexually, you start intermingling your fields, your auras, right? And especially if you get into the human design and you look at like what open centers and things that you have, the more that you intermingle your energy, the more of like you'll notice yourself doing it just like at work. People have little stupid quips and catchphrases and stuff. You know what I mean? And you'll notice yourself starting to repeat those things, and you're starting to enmesh a little bit, right? It just happens to the highest degree with a twin flame. But yeah, they can totally, bring up old patterns that like, maybe sometimes what happens with stuff like this is that rather than actually having transmuted it, what we did was we ignored it and we were away from it, right? Like, okay, there's this thing, this pattern, this, maybe this anger that I have, and I've learned to block it out. Like I've learned to like just not go there and look at that part of my psyche, but this person shows up and they just pull it out of me, right? Well, the same thing can happen with like unconscious patterns and habits. And, I would say if like that's happening, like there's something in it for you. Like there's something that you're supposed to learn, something that you're supposed to see. It may be that, that you might be called to teach in this area. So maybe you need to understand it in more depth. Sometimes like what's happening with me is that Sydney is like an exact reflection of me from like 4 or 5 years ago in a certain way. Right. And it's funny because like I'm looking at it and going like, I know that I was just like that, but like I couldn't see that at the time, right? I can see it now, but I couldn't see it at the time. The same is true of any disease, energy, or miasm. When you're the one who's in it, you won't see it. You're not going to see it until you move past it, and then you're able to like look back in retrospect and go like, oh, wow, that person's like really angry and like always acting like a victim. And you think, and you're like, yeah, I was like that too. And your twin flame will pull that shit out of you if it's still there and you just haven't dealt with it. You know what I mean?
I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say the difference is between purging an energy and just re-experiencing an energy? How do you know if it's purged? How do you know that it's released? And how do you know if it's just repeating? Does that make sense?
I mean, there'll be a whole lot of different indicators. One is that the nature of the situation that it manifests may be different, but certainly the way that you feel and react to it would be different. The way that you think about it may be different. So if you're just re-experiencing it, which is what we tend to do, by the way, the reason why we do a trauma timeline in Heilkunst is because trauma tends to induce cyclical patterns in your life, right? Really, it is about when you're experiencing and accruing that negative energy, right? You're actually going down into the depths. You're literally going down like into the underworld of your own being, and then your job is to like pull yourself back up, and it will kind of happen in reverse chronological order. But when you start to do that, you may be faced with the same situation. You may be faced with an energy that's identical. Now, if you're just re-experiencing it, the whole thing is going to be more or less cyclical. You're going to move through it, and let's say that you have resentment and you feel victimized by another person, right? At the end of that, if you still feel victimized and you still feel like you have no power and you still feel exactly the same way, and the next time it keeps coming around again, then you're just moving through it. You're just re-experiencing the same thing. You're doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting a different result. When you are actually transmuting and letting go of an energy, you will have epiphanies. You will be like, you know what? Like, I can do something different this time. And if you're conscious and aware, you will actually recognize it in yourself in the moment, right? You'll see that, like, wow, I'm really able to take a step back from this, and like I'm able to like really sort through this and look at this and like look at my anger and look at like, maybe I could have reacted differently to that. Maybe I can react differently to that. Maybe you get an opportunity to react differently than that. So like, for example, maybe in a situation in the past, there've been several times where, someone treated you in this certain way, and your immediate reaction was just to fire back at them and like, chew them a new asshole or whatever. And then when you're in the middle of releasing that energy, you're going to feel that anger, but you get to step back and say to yourself, what do I do with this anger? Is there a better way to deal with this than the way I have every other time in my life? And when you step that up into a higher frequency energy, the way that you think about the whole situation will change. Your perspective on the whole situation will change. You can recognize yourself actually releasing emotional energy.
That was a good answer.
Thanks.
Nice. Give him. I don't know how you're reading this.
Superman. Greatest ever was just saying, commenting on the way that I reacted to the laptop.
Oh, a lot of people would have been bad. Yeah, I was pretty upset with myself. I was very mad at myself. I was actually angry with myself enough for the both of us. So it was a really good thing that he responded in the way that he did. But anyways, what does the next one say?
Sentinel says, tip for both of you. Find out what house in the Placidus system your Chiron is in. Mine is in retrograde in the 4th, close to the IC. So I know I have a shamanic template for clearing serious ancestral wounds. You know what? I might be able to even pull it up right now.
I think I have a screenshot of mine too, actually. I don't know when I took this screenshot.
Let's find out, Sentinel.
We are looking up our astrology to answer your question. I might just retype it in. I don't know where it is.
Of course, I'm going to make sure this is actually my chart.
Oh, wait. Yeah, you have my chart too.
I do. Yeah. So this is my chart. In the Placidus system, Chiron.
Here, I'll write it down.
Okay, this free astrology report doesn't show Chiron.
I wish I had my laptop down here. I'm just gonna retype it in.
No. Let me see if it's in the other one. I've got a few different charts set up here.
Astrology.
I know I've looked at it. Chiron. Sorry for those of you who are watching. If let's see. Transiting planets. Chiron in Aries, 15 degrees. I think that might be the current position. Is that the current position, Sentinel? Do you know?
She said something about retrograde, so it must have to do with the current time. Is that it?
No. Okay, it's currently in Aries. No, that is their placement, not the current placement.
It just says, Aries is current.
Yeah, it's in Aries, but yeah. It's not in retrograde right now, right?
Let's see.
No, I don't know. I don't know if my chart shows a Chiron placement. Chiron. Natal Chiron in Gemini. Yeah, mine's in Gemini. I'll read the little description. You're a natural teacher and communicator, and the awakening process of Chiron will be an enjoyable one for you. As Gemini thrives on learning and new experiences, your keynote is awareness. Your mission is about understanding the thought patterns of your culture so that you may help to shape its changes. Your challenge is to learn the way we think creates the reality we experience, and we can therefore change it by consciously changing our thought patterns. So that's what mine says. Let me see if I got Sid's. Sure, it's in here. I haven't used this app in a while. Sydney.
And something I'll just. Oh, did you find it?
Yeah. Oh wait, I didn't give you the house placement. Do you need the house placement?
Mine is Gemini too, but house position
Okay,
is more
yeah.
important.
All right. I'll get that for you. Natal Chiron and Scorpio for Sydney Rue here. And in the 9th house. So for Sydney, it's in Scorpio in the 9th house. And Sydney seems to be drawn inexorably by the energy of Plutonian transformation and evolution. The driving energies for this transformation is Chiron, but the depth and intensity of the quest from the force of Scorpio's ruler, Pluto. These influences together bring about very deep evolutionary forces that impel her on a path of regeneration and rebirth. The key for her initiation and healing work is owning her power, defining her values in such a way that her power is expressed rather than repressed. Doing so, she might find great creative energy in the life-changing events. Let me go back to mine real quick.
Well, that's interesting that I'm working on that specific theme right now in regards to owning my power, releasing self-doubt, trusting self-worth, that kind of thing is the biggest energies I'm shifting through right now.
So my Chiron is Gemini in the 11th house. So I'm wondering if that gives us any insights. Yours is in the 4th house. Yeah. Well, let us know if you see anything interesting there. We are. I'm actually reading a book. If you guys are familiar with KRS astrology, I was told about KRS by Sethicus Boza, and I bought his book, Astrology at the Speed of Light, and it's mainly about Vedic astrology. So I've been reading about that a little bit. So I'm starting to dig into my charts a little bit more. And we actually recently got like 6 of my family members' birth times all at once. That was super exciting. So we've been kind of digging into those. I still really want to get my dad's, but I might drag him over to the town hall to get his birth certificate because he doesn't care. But I would really like to know, because I think it's really helpful to like have these charts and things like on your family members, so you can really look deeply at like the dynamics between the two of you, and maybe like what you're supposed to be doing and like what you're supposed to be dealing with this person, and like maybe what the outcome is supposed to be, and like what is possible and maybe what as feasible right now. I think it's like really important. So Sentinel says mine is Gemini too, but house position is more important. Oh, because Chiron was more slowly, and to take note if it's retrograde, as that is a deeper wound. How can you tell in a chart if it was in retrograde at the time? There must be some software that tells you that. I'm wondering if this would tell you. Natal Chiron. Oh, I can read the descriptions on here too. For the houses. Natal Chiron in the 11th house.
That's you.
Mm-hmm.
And then could you go back to 9th house after?
I will. In this house, chironic awareness has to do with the possibility of playing a unique role in your culture. It is imperative to give your gift, and Chiron's influence is to push you to develop your creativity and idealism. You're probably very individualistic or eccentric and have a great sense of personal destiny. The key to fulfilling it is to release it from the hold of ego and understand that the universal energy flows when you're willing to be a conduit and not try to own it. It is likely that you're much closer to manifesting your ideal than you, and the only thing keeping you from fulfillment is the attachment to ego. Therefore, you need to master detachment. As you understand this, you're able to activate your free will and higher purpose. So that's mine.
You have a lot of human design gates that point to ego issues as well.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
My ego is great enough to defeat my ego. Natal Chiron in the 9th house.
This is me.
His initiatory path has to do with connecting to and resonating with the higher self in this lifetime. She has a natural interest in philosophy and spirituality. She may feel driven to discover ultimate truths and convey them to others. She naturally embodies spirituality, and though she conveys great wisdom to others and may even be considered an adept, she longs intensely for a complete ensoulment, full conscious expression of her soul essence. As she follows this quest, she may pronounced imbalances. She probably will follow a number of teachings and disciplines and may be tempted to believe that the answers she has found are best for everyone. So I think that
I already learned that lesson.
Yeah, I mean, it's
everything
not
else.
always spot on, but
it was all spot on except for the last sentence. Well, and even that was true, but then I learned otherwise.
Yeah, I noticed that like sometimes things like she longs intensely for complete ensoulment, full conscious expression of her soul essence.
So does that mean
I mean, it's like that's part of like what you're here to do, but often like the things that we're here to do will have challenges in those areas.
Yeah, that's what I'm basically focusing on right now, because my thing is I've never had any other goal besides being my most authentic self. In fact, I've even openly like shared my journals with people because I just want to be understood, and I've realized that no one I fully understand myself, and we're all complex in our own ways, and yeah, these complexities have been overwhelming at times, but yeah, it's part of my path.
I think Sentinel is saying that mine is retrograde. So let's see. Yours is also in Gemini and also retrograde. Okay, and Sydney's not retrograde. Take note, if it's retrograde, you have deeper wounds to clear. So when you say deeper wounds to clear, what exactly do you mean? Do you mean that
karmic.
Do you mean that like you're dealing with like past life karmic type stuff? Is it collective deeper wounds? Am I taking on the family's deeper wounds? Is it all of the above?
Probably all. But didn't you mention how you have a past life as a dark black magician or something?
Yeah, I think so. I've never spoken about it publicly, but
sorry.
Yeah, I mean, it would be common for that to happen. There is a because of my like what's gone on in the past few years, like I felt like that I did have a past life as dark magician, and what I was told by someone, and of course I'm having to take all of these things that I was told by people with a grain of salt, because there were people like really trying to screw with my head, people making shit up. But what I was told by one of these people was that like basically what I had done in that life, like kind of like I just took the wrong path and I like went too far, and like I made mistakes, and basically I'm having to like deal with the karma of that now and like deal with it now, which would explain like why I attracted some of the things I explained or I attracted some of the things into my life that I attracted, and why I was sort of like drawn to that, even though like I knew that like that wasn't who I wanted to be, that wasn't who I was. I was drawn to like sort of those people, and they were definitely drawn to me. Like I was attracting like that type of energy for a while. And I think that the purpose was for me to like fully see it, transmute it, learn how to like help people pull themselves out of that energy and like correct those particular distortions, because like I'm not in that energy anymore. And like I made a very conscious effort to get out of it. But yeah, I feel like I took on like the family, like all of the worst stuff from my family. Like when I look at like all of the worst traits of people in my family, like it seems like I have some level of all of them, like no matter what family member I look like. But I don't think that they all have all of them. So I think that there is something in my template that made me like shamanically like absorb everything, so that I could be like one of the people in the family that like actually has to undo it all. And I was told that when I got a reading by somebody. They told me that like I had a shamanic template. Sentinel says absolutely, past life and collective retrograde motion is unpredictable and can manifest as repression, exaggeration, and other unusual patterns of flow. Yeah, I think I got the exaggeration one. Yeah. It's funny. I'm looking around, like people are becoming caricatures of themselves. I feel like what's happening to like the collective is what happened to me like in 2017. Like it's like I was just a little early. I like lost my mind and like came unraveled and like, became like a ridiculous, like exaggerated caricature of myself. And then like, I was able to like see that and come back from it. The difference, I think, between like maybe me and the bulk of society is that like the bulk of society is not actually doing inner work. So I don't know if they're going to come back from that. Like, but yeah. So we've been on here an hour and 25 minutes. We're probably going to wrap up here. I'm wondering, I'm kind of curious on my channel. I don't know if I'm shadow banned because I'm pretty damn sure that I was. So I don't know how many people are like actually being given the notification that we're broadcasting. So I am going to be doing some stuff on Patreon. I'm going to make it, or we're going to be doing some stuff on Patreon. Make it real reasonable. But there's a lot of things that I would like to talk about that I just can't talk about on here. It really kind of makes it tough because I'm not able to be complete in what I'm speaking about. Like there's so much that I would talk about that I'm just like, you know what? Like it is not worth it anymore because it's just, like I said,
with certain people.
Well, it's not, yeah, but those certain people are like most of the population, and they're, the algorithms get to determine like who sees our content. I start talking about certain things, and then our other content doesn't get viewed. I'd rather use this just as a means of like getting people in the door, giving people basic information, and then like for like the real stuff, like the real like detailed information, like I'll have a private place where you guys can come, and then I can be real with you. Like then I can be totally real with you, but I can't be totally real with you on here anymore. I used to be, but the nature of the game has gotten so that I don't want to put myself out there in that way. It's too dangerous. It's too much trouble. Unfortunately, I've got things to lose now where I didn't before, and like I'm just not. I don't feel like sacrificing myself. I don't feel like being a martyr.
We're not supposed to. That's a Anunnaki program.
Yeah, no, we'll talk about that sometime.
That's the stuff that'll be on Patreon.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't quite think about how our effort to filter for the sake of this public platform and avoiding things like being shadow banned and avoiding things like the algorithm deterring our content probably is having an effect on our flow than we realize.
Oh, well, I mean, not only the fact that we've been censoring ourselves because of the people that are in our lives, like, like there's people in our lives that made it so that like we were both like scared shitless to talk about like what we actually believe together, and like the whole reason that we're here, and like we were totally afraid to talk about it because there were people in our lives that like at one point like probably would have like lost their fucking minds if we had started talking about this at that time,
and then have the ability to create drama, which then affects us significantly.
Right. So. And that, that has to do with boundary setting and stuff like that. I mean, there's definitely lessons in it for us. But I mean, that was a big component in like why this is taking so long to get going. Unfortunately, I mean, one of the things that I'm going to definitely be talking about is that one of the biggest problems on this planet is that people are fucking control freaks, like serious control freaks. And they totally believe that it's their right to run around and tell everybody else what they should or shouldn't be doing, and like literally by force using men with guns and badges, like tell you have to do this or that, and it's fucking not cool. But yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I just made this connection. As you were saying that, I was thinking back into the human design perspective on the arrows, which we're going to do a video on and talk about more in depth another time. But if arrows, that aligns with the more masculine energy, more structure, control, and right is vice versa. So if you have more right facing area, you're designed to be more fluid, more receptive, passive, that type of energetic theme. And basically our entire world is moving from leftness to rightness. So we are basically purging out all of the controlling energy. So that is peaking right now. And as we move into this new paradigm, the higher expression of society, I believe that we are going to start to see less of that. But yes, there's a big problem at the moment. What?
Just what you said. It's a lot to parse out and think about. In terms of like left brain, right brain, the energy of masculine
we'll save that for
feminine.
our human design talk. But I just wanted to. I just had that connection in the moment, so
yeah,
it sounded better in my head.
That's funny, Sentinel, because I think the same thing.
What?
Sentinel, are you male or female? Because I can't remember. I want to say male, but Sydney has said she a couple times, so I'm a little confused.
I don't know.
Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah, Sentinel's a guy.
Oh, my bad. I didn't know.
So Sentinel said, reminds me of Mel, which is the old man, Mel Brand. And he had this video where he was like, I hear everyone throwing around this word narcissist. He was like, when I think of the word narcissist, I think of pickles. Narcissist pickles. Like he's like, everybody's throwing this word narcissist around. He's like, I just call them control freaks. You're all control freaks. That's your problem. The reason that you guys can't get this, the reason that you're not with your twin flame is because you're control freaks. And he's like, and basically, like the whole twin flame dynamic, like, will absolutely force you to like let go of your control issues because you're not going to control that other person. Like 100%. Like if there's someone you're never going to control, it's going to be your twin flame. Like 100%. You will not ever control them. Like they are not going to do what you want them to do.
Both ways.
Until you let go. And that's a thing. Like it really teaches you that like the way to gain control is to let go of control and move into alignment with your higher self, with God. If you're in alignment with God and your higher self and like what you're actually supposed to be doing here, things will just be fucking easy, dude. But when you're trying to control things from a place of your lower ego, it's going to be bad. And the twin flame dynamic is going to be really bad. It's not going to be fun, but it's designed that way. It's like built-in safety feature.
Of control could be a whole video on its own, because I think it's a balance. Because if you just throw everything out the window and say there's no point in having any type of control, then that's
you're going off a different direction.
Oh,
because
okay.
There's a difference between like intending something and like building something, for example, and wanting to intending for a certain outcome, setting an intention for like the highest possible outcome. It's really about the details. It's trying to control the little things when you are not able to see the larger plan. Like you are not able to see like there might be a reason for this bad thing to happen right now that like you think sucks. Because maybe that's exactly what needs to happen for the higher good of some larger situation. That's why they talk about like God's plan.
Would you consider discipline a form of healthy control?
That's a topic I would have to parse out a little bit more.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. We could do a whole video on that.
Haven't gone into like the.
That's something I've been really bouncing back and forth.
The details of like control.
It's okay. I'll write it down. We can talk about it another time.
Obviously, I'm not someone who jives with the idea of control. I'm very rebellious against authority. I believe in sovereignty. I believe in personal freedom. I consider myself, basically like the ideology that I align with is anarcho-capitalism. Is the thing that I would say most aptly describes my philosophy about, how the world should operate. And so the way that I view like what's going on right now with all the different things that they're trying to get us to do and make us do with this technology is just like really fucking pissing me off. But discipline, it's weird because like when you're a child, there has to be some level of like control. And so, but Yeah, I have to get into like the mechanics and the energetic dynamics behind why that's true. Because I think that the distorted templates are what create the need for control, even when in childhood. The distorted templates literally create, through fear, the inevitable physical manifestations that would lead one. Right. So
I know that, or the root cause of control can often be fear of the unknown. So when you fear the unknown, you want to control it so that way you know what to expect. So if you are someone who does struggle with control, in whatever fashion that might be for you, getting comfortable with the unknown, being okay with the unexpected and things of that nature. But anyways,
yeah, and I think there's a big difference between like a controlling partner or parent and someone who is administering, like you said, healthy discipline. And I don't think that most people actually understand the difference between the two. What's that person on TikTok that does like the mindful parenting stuff? What is that?
parenting?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I don't know much. I've just seen a few TikToks on it, so I don't have enough information to speak on it.
There's a lot that can be transformed through conscious parenting, because like you're setting the child up to not have all of these distortions that they then have to undo later on in their life. Like if you could just start them off on a good footing, that would be so super important. Huge. And this is an intricate topic, but there's always the balance also between like being overprotective and keeping your child in a bubble, and not letting them experience life. And then when they actually like go out into life, like you shit your pants because you realize you haven't taught them anything about how to deal with like the actual real world. But then, there's also the balance between like, do I keep them safe, or, do I just completely let them go out and like, create a total train wreck, right? Like, I think there is a balance in between those two extremes that's healthy, right? Yeah. Because I don't think you can like, you can't totally shield anyone from life, but at the same, I think really it's about proper guidance. I think it's about,
direction,
exposing people to whatever, things are at reasonable levels that are reasonably safe, that, give them an idea of how to navigate the world. But you don't put them in like extreme danger, and you try not to allow them to get into extreme danger.
And you make sure they have the right tool set with them to deal with whatever might be coming up. I think giving them the right tools is the biggest part. Would you agree?
Yeah. I just started reading the comments here. The universe took away all my control, money, car, possessions, children, dignity, etc. But I believe I have learned and changed what I needed, and plan on getting it all back. Yeah. I think the automatic like programmed response we're supposed to give is, oh, I'm sorry, but I think that you're already at a place where you're realizing that maybe this wasn't as bad of a thing as you thought it was, because you're learning from this. And like, look, when I had my heart chakra opening like 8 years ago, my entire life went completely upside down, and like I went through the hardest like thing at that time that I'd ever been through, and like it was just one thing right after another for years, right? And honestly, it hasn't really started dealing with all of it. But I mean, I wouldn't have changed the way that I have had that not all happened. And believe me, I was not getting what I wanted or anywhere close to what I wanted for a very long time. But I realized like you have that, like I needed to change me, and it was kind of the universe giving me a kick in the ass and being like, you need to change these things. So look into the 4 temperaments also: choleric, sanguine,
I have touched on that before.
Melancholic, phlegmatic. They have associated distortions as well: psychopath, narcissist, histrionic, borderline. But I forget how they match up.
Thank you for that.
Where do the 4 temperaments come from? Is that
like childhood, like when you're a baby?
Is it Ayurvedic? What is that?
It might just be its own thing.
Where do the temperaments come from? Like what system of like thought or medicine does that come from? Homeric. Oh, interesting. So it's Greek.
I've heard about that,
Okay.
but I don't know much.
Greatest ever. This next round will be very different. It will be less about control and more about faith and gratitude.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it.
Trust. Yeah.
I'm having, I'm kind of in that same place where, I think I'm starting to learn how to have faith because I don't think I've ever had it really. And things have been shown to me that like kind of have made me think like, well, I should, because like when I look at it, it's like no matter what happened, like I've always kind of been taken care of. Like it's always worked itself out. Like it's always somehow like if it was something I thought was really bad, like it's always worked out and led to something better. Or if it was some,
Sorry.
like there's Hippocratic, okay,
Hippocrates. Let
Hippocrates.
thy medicine,
I think it's still Greek.
let thy medicine be thy food, and thy food be thy medicine.
Okay, cool. Yeah, the Hippocratic Oath. That's not the Hippocratic Oath.
No.
Do no harm. First, do no
Yeah,
harm. But yeah, faith is. I don't know. It's interesting.
I just got a bracelet.
I don't believe in blind faith. You just got a bracelet? What?
On my copper bracelet, it says faith.
Oh, right. Yeah.
That I got.
I bought her a bracelet. I don't believe in blind faith. I think that that's foolishness. I don't think that like I was reading Manly P. Hall writing from like 1935, and he was asked a question about like how children should be like introduced to spirituality, and he was just basically like, you shouldn't. You should just be like a good example to your kids, and then when they're old enough to like actually understand what they're reading, let them decide for themselves. And this was someone who like was a very, very into, well, kind of the occult, but Christian doctrine and teachings and stuff like that. And this is a highly like spiritual and like religious person saying like, no, that's not how you do it. Like you don't just program them from the time that they're little kids to blindly believe everything that they're told by someone in a white suit. Like that's not how it works. That's a very, very like immature way to introduce someone to the concept of spirituality. Like you want someone to arrive at that themselves, like, and learn how to think, learn how to actually process things, learn how to question things, learn how to question authority,
problem solve.
Yeah. And you should be questioning authority. You don't just blindly take orders. I mean, it's another huge problem you have is just blind order followers that just do whatever they're told. That's a very different thing. But I don't think that, I don't know, my personal concept of what we would call the divine doesn't really work that way.
Yeah, okay, never mind. Trash that thought.
But anyway, let's wrap it up. We're at almost 2 hours again.
Wait, what was the last thing you said? Because it made me think of...
I don't know.
I was going to connect it with something on human design.
I was talking about
authority. Yeah. How we should question outer authority. But really, at the end of the day, it's about learning to become your own authority. And in fact, there's even a complete category in human design about which energy center you are designed to use as your authority. So this is the center that is consistent to your energy matrix, and you can check in with that to make decisions from. And we can talk more about that on a human design talk, but I just found that interesting how the word, just the word to describe that part of the chart correlates with what we get. Never mind. It sounded better in my head.
On that note, I think we're going to wrap it up for today.
Yeah,
the weather here has been like really heavy and like humid and gloomy and sticky. And I think that's part of the reason Sydney's been feeling a little under the weather.
Yeah.
So to speak. I'm feeling a little under the weather too, but not, I don't really have like a cold or anything. I just kind of feel like bleh, but I always have felt that way whenever it was like rainy out or cloudy or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well,
never Teasing you. It sounded better in my head.
Yeah, that's how most things I say go. How most things go that I say. Never mind.
One thing I will ask, for those of you who are here, when we schedule these ahead of time, like, and I'm able to like put, like I can schedule these at a time, so it shows you for like a week. We've got a live scheduled for like Friday at 1. Is that helpful for you guys? There will be times where we can't do that. Like when we're doing the Zoom meetings, unfortunately, you can't schedule a Zoom live YouTube video for whatever reason. Like you have because the nature of going through that software, I can't like schedule it and then use that scheduled event as the live feed. But I'm wondering if that is helpful for you guys, and I'm wondering if this is a good time for people, because I'm thinking about maybe changing the time
A little bit later.
Yeah, just because of our schedule, and I would like to reach as many people as possible, and I feel like we're not. I feel like maybe the time is not the best for people because
middle of the day.
It is the middle of the day on a weekday, and I know a lot of people work.
30 to 60
but
minutes.
I also want to like there's been a few of you like Greatest and Sentinel and a couple of others that have like pretty consistently been here. So I don't want to pull out the rug from under you guys and make it on a time where you can't make it either. Because like I do appreciate you guys like consistently showing up and interacting with us and asking questions. Like that's what I love doing. I love having an interaction with you guys and being able to about it all, and like us being able to really interact with you. That's really what we're here to do with the lives, is just to get comfortable like doing this, talking about these things, breaking the ice a little bit, because things are very different now. When I made videos before, as you guys maybe know, like I didn't really care. Like I just kind of said whatever, and I talked about whatever, and like I didn't care if anybody thought I was crazy. Like I didn't care. I was not concerned at all with anything like my reputation or anything like that. Like I was just like totally concerned with what I thought the truth was, and like everything else be damned. And I'm not really in that place anymore. I'm kind of a place where I'm just trying to take it a little easier and make it a little easier on myself and make a comfortable environment for Sydney to be able to come in as a beginner in making these types of videos, and not have to deal with like the crazy riffraff that comes along with the type of content I was making before. Let's see. What's amazing, Sentinel?
We'll start at the top and go down from here down.
Sentinel says, Joe, first video I saw of you were questioning the upcoming event in March 2018 in PJ pants and spitting seeds. I was spitting chewing tobacco, talking about a dream where family members blindly walked off a cliff. I remember that video. Yeah, a lot of people gave me shit for that because they were like saying I was gross because I was like spitting all over the place, and like I had no shirt on. I was walking around like in the middle of winter in my front yard, just like yeah, that was it. That was me. Just let me know where to find you and I'll look out for you. Hey, Crystal, how are you? My potato friend. It's an inside joke. Early mornings before 10 and late nights are my best times to join live. Time seems to work for me too.
It in the morning.
Yeah, we could do it in the morning.
My brain operates best in the morning, so I'm on board with that.
Yeah. That might be something we can do. And we may end up doing an extra live stream this week. So
yeah.
Okay. We'll keep all that in mind. But yeah, my original videos were a little less tame. So yeah, it's been a journey. I'm trying to clean it up a little bit, I guess.
Just trying to be your best self.
Oh, that's what they were saying. Amazing too. Because Crystal said
saw
that's the
the same
first one they
video.
saw too.
Yeah.
Wow, I
What
reeled a lot of people into that one. It's funny because like there were a lot of people who actually like liked that because like no, I mean
Yeah, I know.
here's this like country dude, this big country dude, like just a total train wreck talking about like quantum physics. Like this makes no sense. Like, he's talking about twin flames and quantum physics and chewing tobacco and drinking fucking copious amounts of Budweiser and smoking cigarettes.
Yep.
I mean, I think it is kind of unique. I don't think that there's anything else like it. Let's see.
What's this one?
Oh, okay. Yeah, we were talking about the event. So the video was about something that the New Agers were calling the event. And they were basically like, they were likening it to the rapture. They were like, all the people that like the 104,000 that are like in the particular frequency, we're just going to get taken away and go to New Earth. And I was like, no, that is not what's going to happen. Like, yeah. Sentinel said, we're like, I don't think this is how it works. Like, we're all just going to get a big shortcut. I don't think so. Yeah. No. Crystal says, you're one of the only ones talking about how weird stuff was around us. Click. Yeah. Like I'm talking to people about it now, like in my real waking life. Like
no one else sees
they
it.
don't see it. I was talking to my buddy at work yesterday and I was like, dude, have you noticed like how volatile people are and like how like uptight people are and like how tense everybody is and like just like how offended everybody is by every little thing. Like I can't even walk into a grocery store without having somebody look at me with like give me a dirty look, and I'm going in there like being nice as pie to everybody, and like people are scared and like, and you know, and then you've got like, you know, half my friends don't know what gender they are. Like I'm walking around, half the people in town have like, I'm just like, what the fuck is going on? Like and I'm not trying to offend anybody if you have colored hair. I'm just saying like it's a little strange. Like things are not normal, dude. Like things are not okay. Like this shit's weird. Okay, like things are getting real strange up in here. And like there's this theory that like really what happened was we all died in 2012, and like what's happening is like we're experiencing brain death right now. The DMT is getting released and things are just getting weirder and weirder. Like
that's from the Dollar Vigil.
Yeah. Like,
I was like, wait a second.
But that wasn't his idea.
That.
Somebody else came up with that idea. But I'm like, it kind of rings a little bit. Like this shit is weird, dude.
Yeah, like we were talking about earlier, when you're in it, you can't see it. It's not until you're out of the energy that you can observe the energy.
And that's the problem is like when you start pointing these things out, everybody thinks you're the crazy one. And it's like, no. You know, and you know what I find funny about it is that the people who seem to notice it are the people that are like not doing this all day, like staring at their phone all day, like on Facebook. That shit is like total mind rot, psychotronic weapon, fucking entrainment, poison. Stay away from it, man. I'm serious.
That's very descriptive.
That's what it is.
What's it say? I can't
Crystal said she lost every friend she had. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of happened to me too. Except that like I was ranting about this stuff enough so that like I pretty much weeded out all the weak ones, and like everybody that's left, you know.
Do you see the one above it?
Me.
I can't.
I felt that way at the zoo a few weeks ago. People are weirder than the animals. Yeah. Dude, it is so strange. And I'm sorry, and there's certain things I guess I'm just not gonna say public, but like man, this ain't natural. Okay, like I'm sorry, but a lot of the things that are being promoted in the public sphere and being foisted upon children is not okay. And you know what I'm talking about. And it's not okay.
But
you
yes,
know?
I agree.
Fucking oorah, Florida. Good job, DeSantis. That's all I have to say.
Man, the screen's getting worse.
Yeah.
Yep.
Probably means we need to go.
We have to release the old to step into the new. Yes,
Yeah.
Crystal.
Well, and I've talked about all this stuff on my channel. I don't need to paint a target on my back right now. But I've talked about ancestral trauma and read the book Saharasia, and I've talked about how they've been purposefully like lowering men's testosterone, inverting the genders, inverting the law of gender. Like they've been intentionally distorting all of this and pumping out mind control propaganda to get everybody to go along with this. And in the last 2 years, it has exploded and it has become exactly what they wanted it to be.
Normal now.
Yeah.
Which isn't normal. Just because something's popular doesn't make it normal.
Yeah. And like, I'm allowed to say this, and look, I could do what I did a few years ago and just straight the fuck up, come out here and be like, this is the way it is.
But we're saving that for Patreon.
We're saving that for Patreon. Yeah.
To protect ourselves.
Yeah. You want to, if I'm going to drop the real deal, I got to get something out of it, I guess. Like,
well, and it'll just filter the people or the audience who sees it, because the people that are on board with what you're saying are going to be the ones that go and see it, rather than just putting it up for everyone, including the people who aren't ready to hear it or don't want to hear it or don't. Yeah. I
mean, look, it's very simple, and it can be proven that these things are caused by trauma, and these types of dynamics do not occur in healthy, unarmored populations, period. It's just true. You can look up the archaeological evidence of it. Armored populations where people have chakra and energy distortions and blocks produce this type of effect. It's not coming from a place of judgment. It's simply a fact. That's another thing that's really screwed up lately, is that like just stating things that are actual facts just totally sends people, they just totally like into an offended, whirlwind, like they can't deal with it. And then like the people that are promoting all of these things have these loops in logic where they put you in a double bind where you can never be right no matter what you do. If you stay silent, you're wrong. If you say something, you're wrong. If you're a white male, you're wrong. Like, it's just how it is, Anyway, we're gonna go because I'm gonna get myself in so much trouble. I gotta go. I love you guys. Thanks for being here.
Yes, thank you guys.
And we'll see you again soon. Yeah. Peace out.
Oh, is that your conclusion?
What can it be?
I guess so. That's fine. Okay.
What else is there to say?
I don't know. I sometimes like to end with a good quote or a good, concluding food for thought before we close.
Based. What does based mean?
I think it just means
Hi, Theo.
Right on.
Right on.
I don't know, actually.
Like a turkey baster?
Or facts.
Facts.
I don't know.
Mic drop. G status. Okay, cool. Thanks. That rant was super based. Means to be righteously correct. In fact.
Okay.
Oh, okay, cool. Thanks.
I had a feeling, but I wasn't sure.
Oh, jeez, dude. It's a strange. It's like I said. It's like a circus world. It's a clown world where you're afraid to just tell what's obviously true. You're afraid to say what is just obviously a fact. This is what Satan does. And we're getting to the end of the simulation. So buckle up. Love you guys. Have a good night.